Hey there, sweet friends. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. I hope you are well. We're going to be working on another pocket folio today for Halloween. And this one starts with a base created with just 3 sheets of 8.5 by 11 paper. We're going to get some really nice full page flips. We have tip-ins as well. And then we also have some flips that go up. We've got pockets here, and we have some really fun inserts. So I think I'm going to show you the full cutting and scoring process today. Makes our video a little bit longer than we're used to, but I think it will be helpful so that you can see exactly how I get enough space from 3 sheets of paper to create this folio base. So if that sounds good to you, then stick around and we will make it together. So I am going to be working with this Halloween Fun collection kit from Cartabella, and I just love how retro and vintage it is. And so this is also really good quality thick paper with a nice linen-y texture, and that will help to create a more substantial and sturdier book. And as I mentioned, we are also going to be using this cardstock, and so I'm picking black, of course, to go with my Halloween theme, but you would want to choose one that coordinated with the project you want to make. So this will be perfect for Christmas, really any holiday or theme you want to work with or collection. You could just simply coordinate your cardstock to it. And so here we go with 3 sheets of this, and I did think it would be very helpful to show you exactly where the cuts come from and where I'm going to score it so that you're going to be able to recreate this exactly as I'm showing it. And so we're going to first start by taking our 3 sheets of cardstock. I do use a guillotine cutter for this. It just helps me to keep things well lined up and square and even. But if you just have a regular paper trimmer, I think that would be perfect as well. And so I'm going to start by cutting each of these 8.5 by 11 sheets of cardstock to be 5 inches wide. Hope the audio is going to be okay for this. I'm standing over top of it, so I think it will be all right. So now I have 3 pieces that are 5 inches wide, and I'm going to turn it now so that the wide part is at the top. And my first sheet I want to cut to be 10.5. This is going to be the spine on the left-hand side. The other 2 I want to cut to be 10.25, so that I'm building in enough space to accommodate the paper layers that I want to add. Now you've got 3 pieces left, and these are going to be 3.5, because remember we started with an 8.5 by 11 sheet. So the first 2 pieces I want to cut to be 10 inches wide. And then the final piece, I'm going to cut 2 separate pieces that are 4 inches. And so these are going to become our tip pages and also our flips. So we've got 2 of those. And so now we just have this little bit left over. And so I think that we got a good frugal use out of this paper. Time to switch to the scoreboard. And I'm going to bring the widest piece first. So that was the one that was 10.5. I'm putting that right up to where the wide part is at the top, and I'll score that at 5 and also 5.5. I take a few passes at that just so that I can establish a good score line. The other 2 pieces that are narrower will score at 5 and then also 5.25. The 2 10-inch pieces, I'm going to score at 5. And then for the 4-inch pieces, I will turn them so that the narrower side is at the top. And then I want to score it at 3. And so this is going to give us just a little bit of a strip that we can add between the layers. And this will be for our tip-in. So now we have 2 tip-ins and 2 flip pages. I'm going to go ahead now and just fold on all of those score lines. And it will be a good idea to run your score tool over that just to reinforce that nice crease. Got 2 lines on all of these larger pieces. And I would continue along until I have all of these score lines folded. And so that's going to be the last score line we need to fold on. Off camera, I am going to add the adhesives just because that doesn't seem to be very entertaining, and I'll probably just jibber jabber the whole time, and that'll cause an editing issue because I've got to get all the weirdness out. And so I'm just going to do that, and then I will rejoin you when I'm ready to assemble these pieces together. I thought it might also be of benefit to share with you where I'm putting the tape at. I'm using a double-sided adhesive along with my Tombow for our 2-glue combo, but it can be a little difficult to see on the darker cardstock. So for these pieces, I don't have anything added to the largest piece that will be the wraparound for the outside. And so for these 2 smaller pieces, I do have the adhesive added to one side only, and it will stop before it reaches that first score line. For the flip pages, you see, I have it added to one side again. And then for the tip-ins, I have added it pretty close to the score line there that was added, and then that will be attached to the book. I'm just going to pull the backing off this tape now, and then we will assemble this folio. So I've got all of that adhesive backing off of the double-sided tape, and I did lay in a line of my Tombow for all of the pieces to help us work along a little bit faster. And so this is going to be obviously the outside cover. I need to add those 2 smaller pieces to join here, and then we're going to have enough room to wrap around. So I've got that 2 glues. I do like to fold up on my score line just so that I get everything lined up exactly where I want, and I know that will fold properly. And now we'll flip it around and attach this piece with the same process. The thicker cardstock you use, obviously the sturdier this is going to be. So start with 65-pound weight and go up from there if you can. So now we've got our book that's going to open outward and then outward again. I have those 2 flips now, and I want to add them here. So I'll line it up to the top. I know it's hard to see when the cardstock is dark. It's hard for me to see it as well. But I want to run it all the way up to the score and then at the very top of the page. Now one will open this way. The second one obviously will be on this side. And then those 2 flips I've got for the first opening. And so I did add a little bit of my 2 glues, but it's going to be really held in place by the layer of pattern paper. And so this is just a lot of trying to get things lined up as best you can. Ooh, almost went the wrong way. And then I'm just going to put that right up against the score line. And that will open this way. Let's do the same thing for here. Remembering to, let's see, fold that up and then open it. Will be here. Okay, so that is going to be it for the base. We'll have that open. We'll have our tip-ins. Each of these will open as well, and then we'll have these page flips on the inside. Now, I'm going to be able to refer back to this and link it with a timestamp, so we may build on this. I think that's always fun to revisit and remake these. You can think of other fun additions or ways to improve it, be it size or adding some practicality. So we'll do that, but for now, this is all set and ready so we can add our pattern papers. So let's start our pattern paper here on the inside, and I do have 2 full-size pages that will show as soon as we open that up. And so I picked a really nice large pattern here, and I did add my 2 glue combo. I'm just putting that on off camera so that I can speed this process up a little bit, since we took a little extra time to do the cutting and scoring. And so for all of the full-size pages, it's 4 7/8 by 4 7/8. And I know it's really hard to see on this darker cardstock, but I'm just getting that centered so that I'll have a nice border. This pattern reminds me a little bit of Joanna Parker designs for Halloween. It's quite vintage and nostalgic. I have one for the other side as well. I try to match my pages, but if it makes sense to you to get through your paper stash and mix and match, then that is what you should definitely do. Just getting that added. And now we do have those flips, so I've got some of the cut aparts from the collection so I can use some of those images. Let's add those here as well. I've kind of got a darker background, a more solid background against this candy and pumpkin pattern, just so that it will look a little bit less crazy. So let's put one on this side as well. And then you want to finish the back. So you can decide for yourself if you want to add a more solid piece of cardstock, and then you can utilize that space for maybe adding some journaling. But I like this little pattern to go with it, so that is what I'm choosing to use for this. But definitely can add some images to the back of here, and that really greatly increases the amount of space you have for finishing details. Plus it's candy corn, and that is the best Halloween candy, so let's put that here. Adding all of these layers really helps to bulk this up. Definitely is improving the sturdiness. So now we've got our first tip-ins and then our first full-size pages. Let's just go ahead and finish the back of these 2. For the tip-ins, I should mention that I cut my images to be 3 7/8 by 2 7/8 so that we still maintain that nice border as we're working along. So now we're going to add the back pages, and that's really going to help to sandwich these additional add-ons in and make them extra sturdy. And I thought, since I had already cut into this paper, I would just continue to use it so that we can be a little bit frugal with that. And so once again, just getting it centered this time between those score lines so that everything is nice and even. And I'll do the same for, now see, I could have used that side, I guess, but I really like that candy pattern. Now I want to cover these flip pages. And so I have this cut to be 4 7/8 by 3 3/8. And I am just picking a geometric to go with that all over pattern, once again, to keep it from looking too busy. There's a lot going on, but it does make sense to have those borders in place as well. Want to add a pocket for either side so that we can include some additional flat keepsakes or mementos and some more of those cut aparts. So I have my pattern cut here to be 7 high by 4 7/8 wide, and then I turned it and scored it at 4 7/8, and then the pocket will just be the portion that folds up. I do want to just adhere that with a little bit of Tombow so that I don't take up any of the room in the pocket with the double-sided adhesive. You just really want to be very careful not to get it too close to the edge or add too much so that it squeezes out. You don't want it to be sticky at all. And this will just take a minute or two to hold that down. Give it a really good pressure while that glue sets up so that it has a good contact. But you would do the same for both sides. And so we're going to have 2 pockets added in. So let's have this pocket at the bottom on the left with that same nice border of the black cardstock. And then on the side as well. Remember that we want to cover the back of these flip pages. I'm going to turn it just so that it's a little easier for me to reach. And I didn't want to cut into an additional pattern to get these covered. So I am just going to join these together. But ultimately, the size I need to cover is still going to be 4 7/8 by 3 3/8. And so I like my stripe to be on the outside of each of them. And then I'll put those sweet pumpkin and candies here as well. So joining these together, it's going to allow me to cover the amount of space I need for these to be finished. And as I'm working along, I'm just thinking of different ways to do some of these elements. And so I definitely will be revisiting this so that we can show some variety and show how versatile this can be. This is going to go ahead and add my back page on. So I'm going to pick these sweet little jack-o'-lanterns and add that to the back. And then I did add a little strip of my tape here so that I can include that ribbon as a closure. This is just some nice plaid ribbon from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and I think it works perfectly with our Halloween theme. And so I did pick that jack-o'-lantern from the back to finish the front as well, just so it will be nice and consistent. Put that right there. And then I'm using the offcuts again just to give myself extra detail and a layering pattern. The more paper you add, the sturdier it's going to be. So I did also have one of the 4x4 cut aparts here, and I decided to cut that out, you see, with a scalloped edge circle die. And so typically I might add a doily, but now I have that really fun border of the orange cardstock. I didn't want to take over any more of this cover, so I did just go ahead and add my foam spacers there behind, and it's got to go pretty close to the top and on the right hand side so that I will have room for the dimensional embellishments I want to add. But before we do that, let's go ahead and add some additional cut aparts for our pockets. And so you could have some images that go with the collection that you're working with, or you might have a printable from my shop, or you might just like to have some plain inserts there as well. And I'm going to put 2 in each one. That gives us more room for our finishing details. I do have a flower arrangement, and I might have chosen orange, but I think the cover already had a lot of orange and I needed to brighten it up a little bit. I switched out the foliage die cut for black and gray, and then I did use my Magnolias from Really Reasonable ribbon, and I just switched out the center so that it would better coordinate, and I do need to add that with hot glue. I'm going to put it as close to the edge as I can without any of those bits overlapping. And then I do have a charm here for the top. I just happen to have a vintagey looking owl, so I thought that would be perfect. I'm going to add those with my hot glue as well. And then a little bit of string here so that I can get it positioned right where I want it to land. I want to cover up the words, the sentiment on that cut apart. So let's just remove the excess. Go ahead and add a button to the top to hide the cut string. And then of course, last but not least, I do want to add a little bit of sparkle and balance. So I'll just put 3 of these sequins here along the other side. I'll use my Tombow for that. So that's going to be it for our project today. I sure do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And remember to check in the description for links. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day. And I thank you so much for watching. Bye.